All right, so are you ready to dive into a career that's actually way more interesting than it might seem?
I think so. What are we looking at today?
We're talking about Customs and Excise Officers. You know, the people working behind the scenes in international trade,
Ah, okay, I'm starting to see where this is going.
keeping everything moving smoothly and every now and then finding something that someone really didn't want them to find.
Yeah. We usually only think about a quick interaction at the airport when we hear customs,
Yeah,
but I'm hoping this deep dive will show there's a lot more to it.
definitely. And we're basing this whole thing on RoleCatcher's career guide, Customs and Excise Officer. I'll be honest, this guide is packed with so many interesting details.
Really? Like what?
It made me realize it's not all just about checking passports and looking for illegal snacks.
That's good, because that's what I was thinking. It's got to be more than that. What I always find interesting is the sheer amount of stuff that these officers have to work with.
I know, right?
Think about it. Every single thing that's crossing a border. Seriously, I mean everything.
Yeah.
Your coffee beans in the morning, the microchips in your phone,
Yeah,
all of it has probably been checked by a Customs and Excise officer.
that's a really good point. I've never thought about it like that.
It makes you think.
So it's not just about looking for contraband, it's more like they're guardians of global commerce.
Exactly. They're making sure that everything is legal, safe, and all the documents are in order.
I see.
And that properly documented part is where it really gets interesting.
Oh, how so?
Well, it's not just about having the right stamps.
Yeah.
These officers have to figure out complicated trade agreements, tariff codes, intellectual property rights.
Hmm.
It's almost another level of detective work, really.
Wait, hold on. Tariff codes. Those things always trip me up back in my economics classes. What do those have to do with being a customs and excise officer?
Well, that's where the excise part of the job really comes into play, you see.
Hmm.
Let's just say, for example, that you're importing some cashmere sweaters from Italy.
Okay, I'm following.
There's going to be a specific tariff code for those sweaters.
Mm-hmm.
Depending on how that code is used, it could mean either a fair price or a huge import tax.
Wow. Okay, so they're not just enforcing the regulations, but they're making sure they're used the right way to keep global trade fair.
Yes.
That's a lot of pressure.
It is, and the pressure's even higher because of how many different things they deal with. Like one day it'll be textiles, the next pharmaceuticals, and then potentially dangerous materials.
Wow. Okay, I'm starting to understand why this job needs a specific mix of skills.
It's true.
You need to be detail-oriented for all the paperwork and regulations, but also be able to adapt and handle anything that comes through the door.
You're exactly right. It requires both meticulousness and the ability to think on your feet, and often under a time crunch. In fact, the guide actually mentions this one case, but I don't want to spoil it for you, where there was this shipment of, get this, ceramic garden gnomes,
Okay.
and it turned into this whole smuggling scheme.
Wait, you have to tell me more. What was going on with the gnomes?
Okay. So just picture this. A shipment of, those kind of tacky garden gnomes arrives at the port.
Okay.
Everything looks totally normal. The paperwork's all good, just the usual.
Right.
But the thing is, the officer in charge, he noticed something a little off about the weight of the crates.
Okay, I have to know, did they, bring in one of those huge scales they use for weighing trucks?
Not quite. It's more like this mix of experience and intuition. The officer, he just decided to take a closer look.
I see.
You know how they have those handheld scanners now that can see through things?
Wait, really? Those exist? That's something from a movie.
Technology is pretty wild, right? So anyway, they used the scanner,
Okay.
and it found something strange inside the gnomes. Like the inside of the gnomes was hollow, right?
Yeah.
But there was something denser than just regular plaster in there.
Oh, no way.
Turns out they were filled with ground coffee beans.
No way.
Yeah. But not just any coffee beans.
Let me guess. Illegal coffee beans. Some rare kind that's worth a ton.
You got it. They were smuggling them in, using those gnomes.
That's crazy.
I know. It was actually a really clever plan, if you think about it.
It really is.
Using something totally ordinary and kind of worthless like those gnomes
Yeah.
to move something really valuable and highly taxed.
Wow. I guess that shows how challenging it is for these officers to stay a step ahead of the smugglers.
It really does.
Mm.
And it's not even just about inspecting things
Oh,
physically.
right.
Remember all that paperwork we were talking about?
Yeah.
Well, the guide actually breaks down a sample commercial invoice like you'd see in real life.
Oh, cool.
And it points out all the sneaky ways someone could mess with it.
So you'd really need to pay attention to detail to catch those things. What kind of red flags would you look for?
Let's say you see, I don't know, 1,000 cotton t-shirts coming in, and they're from a country that's known for making textiles. Sounds normal enough, right?
Yeah.
But then you look closer, and the value they listed for each shirt is way too low. Or the company that's exporting them, they have all these past violations.
I'm starting to see it's about connecting the dots and finding those little details that could point to something bigger.
Exactly. And that's why analytical skills and problem solving are so crucial. The guide actually mentions that a lot of customs and excise officers come from backgrounds you wouldn't expect.
Oh, like what?
Things like, oh, I don't know, forensic accounting,
Wow.
law enforcement, even international relations.
It makes total sense when you consider how much they need to be able to look at the big picture and see how someone might take advantage of different parts of global trade.
Right.
I feel like having access to the right resources would be so important in this job.
100%.
Actually, speaking of resources, I wanted to ask you, have you heard about RoleCatcher's skills analysis tool?
Oh, yeah. It's really cool, actually.
What is it?
You can put in your skills and your work experience and everything,
Okay.
and they have this algorithm that analyzes it.
Oh, cool.
And it compares it to all kinds of career paths, including customs and excise roles.
Wow, that's really useful.
Right.
Especially if you're thinking of switching careers, you could see if what you already know would be a good fit.
Exactly.
And even if this is already your career path, I guess it could show you areas where you could grow and learn more.
Exactly. And that's another thing. The guide really emphasizes how important it is to keep learning and growing in this kind of job. You can't just rely on what you already know.
Oh, for sure.
You have to be up to date on new regulations, new technologies, even how things are shifting in the world that could impact trade.
Definitely.
It's not really the best job for someone who's afraid of a challenge.
No, definitely not.
But for people who like a fast-paced environment, it can be incredibly rewarding.
I can imagine. So we've talked about the challenges, the skills, the need to constantly be learning. But I feel like we should also touch on the why.
What do you mean?
Like, what would make someone want to have a job as a Customs and Excise Officer? Why should our listener be interested in this?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
Honestly, when it comes down to it, I think it's about wanting to do something that matters,
Right.
to make a difference. They might not be saving the world, exactly.
Right.
But they have a really crucial role in protecting their country's economy and making sure people are safe.
That's a good point. We take it for granted that dangerous or illegal things are kept out of the country.
It's true.
But it's because of the hard work of these officers that we have that peace of mind.
Exactly. They're the ones stopping things like fake medicine,
Right.
unsafe products, even smuggled weapons. And on a more positive note, they're the ones making sure that legal trade runs smoothly,
Yeah.
which helps the economy grow and creates more jobs.
So it's a career with a real impact on the world.
For sure.
It's not just pushing paper around. It's about making a real difference.
Yeah. And we can't forget about the adventure part we talked about before.
That's right.
Every single day is something different. You might uncover some crazy smuggling ring, or maybe you're checking out a shipment of exotic animals, or figuring out these complicated international trade agreements.
That definitely sounds like anything but boring. I can see that these officers need a really unique set of skills. They need the knowledge and even a bit of street smarts to really navigate all the complexities of international trade. And speaking of navigating, the guide actually goes into quite a bit of detail about the different career paths in this field. So from what I'm gathering from this guide, it seems like this career path is anything but stagnant. Like, you're not just going to be stuck in the same role forever, are you?
Oh, definitely not.
Yeah.
You can move up and even specialize in areas that really interest you. So say you start as an entry-level officer, just getting your feet wet,
Right.
maybe learning about how to use those high-tech scanners we were talking about earlier.
Okay, now you're speaking my language. I still can't get over those gnomes.
I know, right? But anyway, as you get some experience under your belt, you could become a junior officer.
Yeah.
And then you'd have even more responsibility. You'd be doing more investigations, working directly with importers and exporters.
So you'd be using your judgment more and more based on what you've learned.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And if you show that you've got leadership potential
Right?
and you really understand all those trade regulations,
Yeah.
you can move up even further. Senior officer, management roles. The guy actually mentions that senior officers might end up overseeing some pretty complex investigations.
Wow.
They might even be managing teams or even like shaping policies and procedures.
It really sounds like those unexpected backgrounds could come in handy here.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Like, imagine if you had a former journalist who becomes a Customs and Excise Officer,
Right.
and they could put all their investigative skills to work, uncovering these smuggling rings.
Exactly. Or maybe someone who used to be a lawyer, and now they're the expert in understanding those international trade agreements.
That's so cool. It seems like there's a place for so many different types of people in this line of work.
Totally, there really is. RoleCatcher has this really helpful feature that can actually help you find your place, too.
Oh, what's that?
Their platform lets you check out different specializations within customs and excise.
Oh, wow.
Like you could become a certified customs specialist or even a certified international trade professional.
Those certifications sound really impressive. What all do they involve?
Well, they basically prove that you have really advanced knowledge and expertise when it comes to certain aspects of customs and regulations and procedures. Having those on your resume, they can definitely open some doors for you
Oh, yeah.
to better jobs and stuff.
Yeah.
They make you stand out, in what's a pretty competitive field.
It's like you're leveling up your skills. And speaking of leveling up, I really liked this one thing the guide mentioned.
Oh, yeah. What's that?
Well, it's something that I think is relevant to everyone listening, even if they aren't planning to become a Customs and Excise Officer.
Okay, I see what you're saying. What is it?
It's just the idea that even if this isn't your career, knowing how Customs and Excise work can help you in so many different ways.
You're right. We always just think of customs as this annoying thing we have to deal with.
Yeah.
But it's so much bigger than that.
It is.
It's the foundation of international trade. It affects businesses and economies and even our everyday lives.
It's true. Like, let's say you're trying to start your own small business and you want to find products from other countries, right?
Right.
If you know how the customs regulations work, all the paperwork you need, and even those tariff codes we were talking about,
Yeah,
you could end up saving yourself so much time and money and a lot of stress.
totally. And even if you aren't directly involved in international trade, just being a more aware customer
Yeah, yeah.
who understands how everything moves across borders,
Yeah.
it helps you appreciate the things you buy
Oh, yeah.
and the people who make it all happen.
It's about being a global citizen, right?
Yes.
Being aware of how everything is connected and how things work on that scale. And sometimes it's even just about taking a minute to think about where the things we're buying are really coming from.
Exactly. So like the next time you're shopping online or even just at the store, try to imagine the journey that that product went on to end up in your hands.
I like that.
Like how were customs and excise officers involved in making sure it's the real deal and that it's safe and even that it's affordable?
That's such a good point to end on. We really do take these systems for granted, but it's the people working hard behind the scenes that keep everything running the way it should.
I completely agree. So if any of you are interested in finding out more about this line of work, I would suggest checking out that career guide from RoleCatcher.
Yes, definitely.
It goes into way more detail than we could cover today.
And you never know, maybe our deep dive today got you interested in a new career path. Or at least it gave you a new way of looking at the world of international trade.
Totally. Until next time,
See?
everyone.